Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever that you may be tuning in. This is Yonks, and this is now our third community call for Three Win Social. And for those that may or may not be familiar, Three Win Social is our DAO ecosystem hub for tokenizing real world assets with our cooperative ownership protocol. And, I feel a little bad. Here it is, October 7th, and I was looking, it was August 2nd when we had our last community call. But, that's what happens when we're heads down, building and building and building. And I'm extremely pleased with the efforts that we put forward on our previous Hero X Solar Prize round eight. And before we talk about that, I'm going to start off and I'm going to make this something that we do very regularly is talking about our people first culture, FELG culture, which is an acronym for fun, earning, learning, and giving. So, moving down the list of our agenda, and wherever you're at, we will have our agenda linked in here on Google Docs. And again, mentioned that we're building a DAO ecosystem for tokenizing RWAs, which is a acronym for real world assets using our cooperative ownership protocol. And taking a look here, as far as our DAO ecosystem, I'm not going to go into line by line, but we created a Telegram group for representing that. And this is a best representation of our sprawling ecosystem, again, where we're focusing on tokenizing real world assets. One of the things that I did want to talk about, Colorado blockchain, we have a very strong focus on launching here in Colorado. And I'm not going to break down all of the reasons. One of the reasons is that Tyler and I have a lot of experience. We're based here in the Denver area. And Colorado Blockchain Alliance is something that we're launching to really onboard more people into our ecosystem here. And we did launch Colorado Blockchain Foundation, which we did obtain our IRS determination letter for 501c3 status here earlier in the year. And we did have a conversation with Your Beeline, which is a nonprofit marketing agency, in order to assist with a $10,000 a month of Google AdWords grant opportunities that is available. And also having some conversations with a student leader at Colorado School of Mines. Golden, Colorado actually has a lot of opportunity. We've identified with our projects at large three pilot communities that we're really focused on: Boulder, Welby, which is unincorporated Adams County, and then Inglewood. And depending on what kind of traction that we get with Golden, there's a lot of opportunity with green energy tax credits that largely got put forward in the Inflation Reduction Act. And I've got a bullet point here to talk about coordinating an on-chain bootcamp in November with that student leader. And on-chain bootcamp is really the primary mechanism that we're going to be using to onboard and educate people about our cooperative ecosystem that we're building out here. So again, mentioned Solar Prize round eight, and we ended up having five working groups for that. And again, I'm very, very pleased. And let me see if I can open up the tab here real quick. Hero X. So here was the teams list for that, and our team, On-Chain Energy Network. And here was what we ended up submitting for that. And I'm not going to go down because we've got a lot of history on that. Now, one of the things that is the opportunity is to really transition from On-Chain Energy Network is a software platform for cooperative ownership of renewable energy resources. And what we're looking to do with We Own Energy for Christ is basically have two brands that we're looking to begin onboarding community solar subscribers: We Own Energy and Energy for Christ. And we've actually shortlisted a list of 18 or 17 or 18 churches here. And this is one of the things that I'm going to go do a little bit of rebranding around leaning into Energy for Christ. And part of the reason that doing that is really had some self-awareness as far as trying to simplify the conversation, trying to explain gigs go green, and then the opportunity around energy, what I believe was a little bit more difficult. That's something that we can bring forward as a huge opportunity, because I absolutely love the narrative that we're building with Gigs Go Green. But when we're talking about just simplifying the narrative here for churches, and let me scroll down here. So one of the things that wanting to do is to create a written piece of content, a top 10 list of churches. And this is where we spend some good amount of cycles, and it is actually 18 churches, and there's a possibility that there's some that we didn't get on the list here. But the main reason that these churches are prioritized in this order is because of how that they stack tax incentives. And this page here actually breaks down. So one of the things, going back to our agenda that we've got over here, is to pipeline 3 to 5 of these churches here in 2024. And when I'm talking about pipelining, I'm really wanting to get a simple letter of intent. And I say simple. Now, I don't think that those conversations are necessarily going to be simple, but that's a tool that we can really start moving the conversations forward. And this is the opportunity for us to really develop a turnkey playbook within We Own Energy and our on-chain energy network. So on-chain energy network is going to be a combination again of software, and really one of the things that I love about blockchain on-chain technology is the composability, but I'm not going to unpack all of that right here. One of the things that I would absolutely encourage those of you that are on the call here today that would like to continue the conversations, feel free to join our Hero X team. And this is something that I'm also going to put out to the universe at large. I operate from the belief that everybody is capable of contributing something worthwhile. And one of the things that we're going to talk about is, and this is something that we're very intentionally architecting throughout the entire life cycle, are economic incentives. And one of the things that Tyler and I have talked about is really putting a rubber meets the road economic incentive for somebody that can deliver a letter of intent, or someone's. And when I talk about an economic incentive, we're talking like $1,000 to $2,500 bounty for delivering this letter of intent. Now, we need to have some more conversation, because I don't want all of us like going and, after the same list of churches, because obviously this isn't a strong, or again, we can have some better strategy around that. So for anybody that's interested in pursuing getting a letter of intent, and this is something that we'll absolutely hold your hand with and collaborate with and have some side conversations with. But this is one of the goals that we have, because one of the requirements of this community power accelerator, and just to unpack like how much the Department of Energy is incentivizing this. I don't know if everybody remembers here, but the prize opportunity with Solar Prize Round 8 was approximately $4 million. This is something that is so important to Department of Energy that they've got forward $10 million of prize money. And it's structured a little bit differently. I don't think that it has quite a large of a prize. And one of the things that I would encourage people that want to better understand this, there was actually, let me see if they've got it here. So there was a webinar that they just hosted, and I'll circulate that in a follow-up email. But anyway, one of the requirements is we've already got our flagship region village at Eastlake, Gigs Go Green Region Village. And this is something that we'll be talking about here momentarily. But one of the requirements for the Community Power Accelerator is that it needs to be a portfolio of projects. We can't submit just Region Village, because that's obviously not a portfolio. And this is why that I've got this as a goal right here of getting 3 to 5 additional projects, because that would absolutely be a portfolio of energy assets that we're going to be building out. But anyway, I'm going to stop here and let anybody chime in some questions that we have that may come up around Community Power Accelerator, because as I mentioned, this is going to be a cornerstone project that really going to be leaning into here in Q4.
A question. Just because I haven't dug into the community power accelerator round, what is the difference between the last round and the new round besides the prize pool, right? What is the deliverable difference between the two opportunities?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Jonathan. And the main difference with Solar Prize Round 8 is that Department of Energy is really looking for ingenuity surrounding solar. And like when you talk about ingenuity, they're really looking in 2 buckets, from a hardware, like you're creating some breakthrough hardware to, get higher energy density out of solar panels, for example, or some like with software, which we did with on-chain energy network, where we're really creating a cooperative ownership protocol surrounding software. Now, Community Power Accelerator is more geared towards like when you unpack like this team name here, we own energy, and this is where we're looking to onboard community solar subscribers, where those property assets are really community owned. Now it's maybe a little semantical because we're incorporating cooperative ownership in everything that we're doing, but like when you unpack the difference between on-chain energy network, which is just software that we're really gearing that to be white labeled, versus like the energy assets themselves, is really where Community Power Accelerator prize round 3 is looking to create those energy assets, like the distributed energy resources.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, it's basically you're trying to deploy what was presented from the previous round. Perfect.
You,
Um, the
you nailed it right there. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
the software as a service aspect, just so I can be forward thinking, at what point are there key deliverables in your mind, right? As you're presenting opportunities to the community publicly, when do you believe there's going to be a need or a projection of intent for deliverables for software as a service? And are you assuming software as a service comes down uh downwind of hardware development? Is there intent for hardware development? Like the rabbit, as you know, the rabbit hole can go very deep, trying to stay agile as best as possible with these projects. Where do you think the software as a service, which in itself is a whole, project, right? Where does that fall in line with the pipeline of opportunities as you guys see it?
So really, I think the trigger, and this is like going back to the goal, getting the LOI. Now, you obviously don't need any stack of software to get a letter of intent from an asset owner. And again, going back here, like our parking lot model is one of the biggest opportunities that I see to, because like when you just simplify what we're looking to do, for most people, most of these churches, for example, that have a parking lot, churches don't normally charge for people to park in their parking lot. And I can think of one exception very clearly here in Colorado, because they've got proximity to where the Broncos play, and they absolutely do monetize their parking lot, but that's an anomaly and not a normal thing. So like when you talk about upgrading a parking lot to a distributed energy resource with a solar canopy, battery storage and EV charging, that very quickly moves that asset, that parking lot, from the
Right.
expense sheet into the income producing. And one of the things that we want to get great at, going back to our cooperative ownership model, is really creating community owned. And that's another reason that we're very strategically targeting churches. Because when you think about organizations that serve the public at large, churches are towards the top of that list. And then when you think about, okay, well, churches have parking lots that are normally not utilized for a good portion of the week. And then when you think about high trust organizations, again, churches are towards the top of the list. So one of the things of our software model is getting great at onboarding investors into these assets. And that's one of the things that we're already starting to get some practice with, not just practice, but we're creating a workflow surrounding Region Village for starting to onboard investors. And I don't know if everybody's seen the form that we've created, and this is something that we're working with an attorney here in Colorado to continue to refine that process. So that's, I think, really the first mechanism of using a software stack. And this goes back to in one of our working groups, I created a post on the National Community Solar Partnership forum for unpacking, because one of the things that I don't want to necessarily do at where we're at in this stage of the game is reinventing a software solution if there's one that we can potentially use, because I would rather use somebody else's solution and find out how that we can improve upon that, especially with our tilt towards on-chain technology. And then because like when you go back to our submission, Department of Energy with Solar Prize Round 8 was really looking for something on a 3 to 5 year time frame for something that's going to be commercially ready. I know that it wouldn't take anywhere near that long for us to really create a software stack, but I don't want to prematurely create something if there's a great product, and because there might be a better need of focusing on here in the near term. But to answer your question, creating a mechanism for onboarding investors, because like one of the expectations that I have is that we get great at delivering returns to investors. They're going to keep on coming back and want to invest in more and more energy assets or whatever type of assets that we do, because our trust is going to go up with those individuals, because we delivered results the first time around, right?
My follow-up question would be then, so from what I've understood of the HATS protocol that you are using for the organizations, is there an intended integration with the potential hardware or network solutions for the assets themselves? Are you intending for HATS protocol to bridge you to the physical asset?
So when you think about the governance, because like here in our team name, uh, very intentionally bridging what I'm envisioning to be two brands. We own energy in energy for Christ. So when you think about like going back towards the dynamic that I said, I really envision like us onboarding investors into distributed energy resource 1, 2, 3, 4, ABC, XYZ, and at then some point having a governance mechanism. And this is one of the great use cases of HATS protocol. Like we've already implemented a governance mechanism. I mentioned Colorado Blockchain Alliance and our Colorado Blockchain Foundation as a board of stewards member. And let me just show this here because this is worthwhile. Right now on our founding board, we've got three people: myself, Tyler, and Jason Webb. And on Snapshot, which is a governance dashboard, and I'll just go over here real quick since this is a community call. Let's see. So over here, Colorado blockchain. And so over here, I don't have any proposals, but the settings of the snapshot portal for 501c3.co blockchain.eth is using these NFTs, and these are technically ERC 1155 NFTs. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's one of the great things about hats is that it provides a nice mechanism for visualizing. And let me make this a little bit easier to visualize. So right here you can see 3 wearers, and this is the breakdown of who is currently wearing this hat. And this is something that, from my vantage point, there's only going to be increasing composability within the ecosystem. Now, one of the things that we're going to get great at with 3Win Social is abstracting away the technology from people. And this look and feel of this website is going to change very dramatically here in Q4. But one of the things that we're being very intentional about is abstracting away the technology and creating a great user experience and user interface. So did that answer your question on that, Jonathan?
Yeah, I guess one last question. So when I'm looking at this project from other John's perspective as engineering, right? I can assume he's using a couple of pieces of software in order to generate a model for an asset, right? And I know the, I guess the bridge between the applications he is used to seeing, or any standard architect or engineering firm is going to be using for their model, and the HATS protocol. So whether you guys build a feature within to HATS protocol to integrate with, let's just say, hardware broadly, right? There's still another step to this project in the actual model for the asset, and that's where I think there's opportunity to continue to innovate, right? Would be my suggestion is, if you could get to the model applications that John is familiar in seeing, then you're now touching hardware, right? You're now touching compliance. You're touching a lot of the things we talked about adding value to the asset, and then just replicating from there versus I see what's going on in Hatch protocol. That makes sense from a fund manager standpoint. It doesn't make sense for an asset management, if that makes sense.
And I guess it just depends when you're talking about asset management, like what kind of decisions, because HATS is more geared for providing roles-based functionality. So when you think about like us elevating to a virtual power plant where we've got multiple assets and the opportunity to, you know, create a hat and then potentially get some workflow where and this is one of the things, like from a autonomous admin that adds capabilities where there might be software solutions that are controlling the underlying energy assets. Because, like, for example, one of the opportunities that absolutely exist with energy assets, especially when you have battery storage, one of the things that occurs here in Colorado during the summer is that there's peak hours of energy usage, like in the afternoon when people are getting off, coming home from work. The energy from, like, I can't remember exactly what the price is, but it may make sense for us to send energy to the grid where we can get a premium for that energy. So that's the sorts of workflow automations that we can architect into, whether it's an individual or group of individuals, or whether it's a software tool that is controlling an underlying physical asset like a distributed energy resource. And it is worth mentioning that I did meet the co-founders of HATS Protocol here when I was in Detroit for MCon 3, and I'm pretty confident if we had some solid use cases for how that we can use this in our organization, because it's basically, HATS is a composability tool where, again, and I'm not going to continue to unpack that. I think that there's a lot of opportunity as we continue to find out what we need and work on getting that architected from software into the situation. But going back to, we've spent a little bit more time on the Community Power Accelerator Round 3, which is absolutely okay. Like I said, I really envision that this is going to be a cornerstone project. And quite honestly, we're not going to, here the next week or two, going to be leaning into this too much, because right now we've got a time sensitive thing where we've got on Gitcoin grants round. But before I move on to Gitcoin grants, does anybody else want to chime anything on Community Power Accelerator Round 3?
Jason, I'll chip in one more thought on the software side. This is also going to tie into our Planet People Profit Impact platform, where we will assess the social value, the environmental value, and the asset value in a monetized net present value state for each of these efforts. So there is a software platform that we'll utilize when we get to the right moment to establish a quantified social value for these things, a quantified climate value, and it's based on statistics and life cycle and all these good things. So that's another feature that I wanted the team to know about, that we will pull the trigger on when we're at the right point.
And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because it's worth mentioning about B Corp and becoming a certified B Corp. Gigs Go Green Region Village, which is unquestionably our flagship proof of concept that we're pipelining right now, is organized here in Colorado as a public benefit cooperative operating as a limited cooperative association, which does mean that we can go through the process of becoming a certified B Corp. And I'm not sure if it makes sense to really prioritize in doing that here in 2024. We can potentially evaluate that, but this is definitely a mechanism that I think that we should get great at, because people, planet, and prosperity, triple bottom line. And that's also worth mentioning too, that's where 3Win, our ecosystem, comes from, is about the triple bottom line. And I'm a huge fan of John Elkington and his Towards Sustainability. And for anybody that wants to read that paper, it's now in its 30th year anniversary. It was originally written in 1994. It's paywalled, but I do have a PDF, so send me a DM if you want to unpack that. But I'm going to go ahead and move on here to our Gitcoin grants round 22. We've talked a little bit about that. I do have an open tab on that, and right now, time to apply. So we are currently underway, and I've got some personal experience with Gitcoin grant rounds, and this is something, like I said, is really something that we're leaning towards for playing the long game. I mean, I unquestionably like to believe that playing the long game with what we're doing here, just to unpack what I mean by that, we've been pursuing tokenizing real world assets since middle of 2021, and finally at a point where it makes sense to launch here in Q4 of 2024 and really lean into launching in 2025. So the big opportunity and as I mentioned before we went live, there's really 3 projects that we're looking to create a submission for. I don't think that it really makes sense, because one of the things that I've got already personal experience with the previous 2 Gitcoin grant rounds is that it does require a little bit of promotion. Like, we don't have a ecosystem of people here. I mean, we've got a small team, like on our Hero X, we had 11 people that participated in that, but we're still very much in pre-launch, and the opportunity is for us to get not people that are associated with our project to back our project. And this is categorically donation crowdfunding, where people, give money and they have no expectations in return, but really looking to create 3 projects. And let's talk about, because that was some of the urgency around this conversation here today, is surrounding Region Village at Eastlake. So this is the primary, and let me show you where I'm talking about. So there's the OSS, which is operating open source software rounds, and then there's the community rounds, and this falls under the community round. Ma Earth, this is the second round that they've done, and I believe that they have 170K. So it's not, I believe that's how much that they have for matching rounds. And one project can receive up to 25,000 in matching rounds. So it's definitely a decent amount of opportunity. And as you can see here, this is one. So land projects apply for the grants. So this is definitely aligned with here, where we're under contract for a 3.5 acre parcel in Thornton, Colorado. And we have until October 15th to do that. So let me see if I have, I'm going to update this to October 15th so that we don't miss the deadline. I don't know if there's any benefit of submitting early. That's one of the things that I'm going to unpack a little bit in more detail. But this is where what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Google Doc, and I'm going to actually add that as a next action here. Create 3 Google Docs, 1 for each Gitcoin grants round. So as we all know, because we all were on our Hero X Solar Prize round 8 team, and this is where we've got a decent amount of narrative that we just put forward. And let me just for the sake of everybody's benefit, here is our Gitcoin grant round 20 that we submitted. And as you can see here, I think that there was $73, not a lot. And I think that we ended up receiving about that in matching. And over the last 2 Gitcoin grant rounds, I think that we're up to about $450 in contributions. And I honestly, for grant round 21, did not promote or spend any time promoting our grant round. But this is the one that we submitted, and this was largely copy and paste from previous narratives that we had refined. Needless to say, the narrative around Region Village is going to be very different than just the Gigs Go Green project at large. So again, I've got a next action to create some Google Docs on that. But anyway, did anybody want to ask some questions on the Gitcoin grant round? One thing that I will mention in between October 16th and October 23rd, and one of the things that's a question mark is I'm hoping to go to Centrifuge's Real World Assets Conference in New York on the 22nd and 23rd. Do you happen to know, Jonathan, when they're going to make a determination on who is accepted for that, out of curiosity?
I don't know when the cutoff is, but I'll bump Baji on my side. So I'll find out.
Awesome, thanks. So anyway, what I was thinking here is hosting a Gitcoin working group. I've spent a decent amount of time on getting my Gitcoin passport score. And what does that mean? That means like I get a higher amount of matching because I've went through some processes over time. And this is something like, we'll see where my score is, but this is kind of like a proof of humanity. Because like when you think about gaming grant rounds, like because like it to spin up a new Web3 wallet, it literally takes less than 5 minutes. There's no KYC, there's no bank that you have to. So one of the mechanisms that Gitcoin has developed over some time here, and again, that we're in grant rounds 22. So my unique humanity score for on using Gitcoin Passport is 78.8, which is very high because I went through a lot of methodologies here to say, hey, the wallet that's associated with Yonks.eth is a real person. So I'm not going to unpack that, but I do think that there's an opportunity for us here in between the 16th and the 23rd. And I see Jonathan's got a comment in here wanting KYC AML for any projects involving real assets. Absolutely. And this is something too that that's going to be interesting because there's lots of efforts being done around ZK and things like that. But that's definitely something that we're looking to incorporate in our own workflow surrounding receiving money from people as investors and stuff like that. So like you think about software, developing the software solution, that's likely going to be a component in, and one of my favorite tools for doing that, that's not even is with Persona. With Persona is, or just with Persona is a leading KYC provider on a global basis, and they actually have solutions that are geared for people doing Web3 on-chain crypto projects such as ourselves do. So this is something that we will likely be doing a demo or an evaluation on here when it like makes a little bit more sense. But anyway, we're getting close here to our time frame. That was the primary agenda that I had here. And again, the primary thing that wanted to do was bring forward the opportunity with the Gitcoin grants rounds and really just kind of set the tone here. We just entered Q4 with October, already October 7th, and October is going to fly by, and November is going to fly by even faster because I'm going to be attending 3 different conferences, 2 of which travel's involved in November. But I'm going to stop talking and let some people chime in, and we can do a little bit deeper dive on some of the requirements here for the Ma Earth Grants round, but I'll let everybody else determine where we use our last few minutes of this hour.
Hey, Jason, what follow-up do we need to do? I know the last grant round had a couple of action items on our side that we need to get those knocked off. What deliverables do we need to put in, and how do we want to get that going?
So I'm glad that you brought that up because one of the things, not even necessarily a deliverable, but Karma Gap, and I did have a conversation with the founder of Karma Gap, and I'm going to throw a link in here so that everybody can see it. I'll throw this on the live stream too. So here is the link to our, and for those that aren't familiar, let me just open up another tab. So GAP stands for Grantee Accountability Protocol, because this was one of the other mechanisms that had kind of been implemented, is that there had been these projects that had, like, you know, this is now grant round 22. So there's been a lot of previous grant rounds, and there's been, I guess, a decent amount of projects that don't really seem to have a sustainable business model because they keep on, you know, applying for Gitcoin grants rounds and not really, you know, moving away. And when you think about, like, because that's one of the things that I feel that we're architecting into our overall cooperative ownership protocol is a really strong sustainability mechanism. But Karma Gap is something that really around Gitcoin grants round 20, which is when we first submitted Gigs Go Green. But here's our project. Like, this is something that I haven't even endorsed the project myself. So I'm planning to create a little bit of content. This is something that we should probably update, like for Gigs Go Green, because this was, again, just our main copy and paste, and the opportunity to refresh this. But then also, like, one of the new features that they added is a roadmap. That's why we don't have any objectives on here, but this is just a very nice portal. And when you think about, like, having this sort of a dashboard to really, like, showcase our project, this is a free tool that doesn't cost us anything to use. but then can also potentially, and this is something else that I'm going to really unpack to see, like here, there's a get updates from this project. Is this something that if we encourage people to subscribe to our Karma Gap, do we potentially get these email addresses? That's something that I don't really know. And I did promise Mahesh, who I had a conversation with last week about this, that I would have a lot better vantage point to be able to provide some additional feedback on this tool. But I'm going to add this as the next item. Update our Gigs Go Green project page on Karma HQ.xyz and create project pages for 3Win Social and on-chain energy network. But anyway, does anybody else have some questions on Gitcoin grants? So here's the key timelines that looking at. So applications are this. Here's a community call. I'm going to actually put this as a action item. Register for Ma Earth. And the other thing that there's going to be a lot of is hosted Twitter spaces around this. And that's something that I'm hoping to, because there's a lot of shill rounds where, you know, people such as myself can go on and promote the project. I do think that it would be worthwhile to potentially collect, because one of the things that's an opportunity is, you know, potentially collecting. And one of, besides just collecting interested parties, go ahead. I see you've got your hand up, Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I have a Twitter space tomorrow, 9 a.m. MST for Centrifuge. So they're not going to be, the main account is not going to be reposting. This is just part of a what they call the ambassador group. So it's a smaller private space, but it's a space we've been doing for a couple of months now. And so we're hoping here within the next couple of spaces, we'll get that rebroadcast from the main channel. So I would love to invite, I'll distribute the details later today. But yeah, I'd happily invite everyone to that call tomorrow.
Yeah, and just to pipeline or put my intentions out there, as you know, Jonathan, I'm a huge fan of ambassador situations, especially one that I think are unquestionably aligned. And Centrifuge is one of the top DeFi protocols that very interested in potentially having conversations with to scale up the tokenization of real world assets. Ondo Finance is another leader in as far as TVL, that they have a large treasury that we could potentially partner with. But yeah, I would love to see what it takes for me to become an ambassador there within the Centrifuge ecosystem as well.
Well, I'm happy to invite you to the call with all of the other ambassadors.
Great. No, that'd be perfect. So anyway, we've got a couple minutes left. I'll hand that over to whomever. And one of the things that I am going to bring forward real quick is, and I'm going to put this as the next action, and I'm going to open up a tab, because one of the things that I didn't get on the agenda is we're looking to begin evaluating Meet with Wallet. And one of the opportunities here is when you look at some of the features that they have is, let's see where it is. Best meeting slot find. Meet with Wallet finds and proposes the best meeting slots for your group to meet. As everybody knows, we've been using Let Us Meet for quite a while. and would really like to embrace potentially using a more sophisticated tool that has more development being done. Let Us Meet is very, very simple, and I haven't seen any changes on Let Us Meet in the 3 years that I've been using it. So having potentially more capabilities, and then like, you know, as we continue to grow and scale, like that's another question, another opportunity. But I've already had a conversation with the founding team of Meet with Wallet as well. So this is a tool that we're looking to evaluate. And because one of the things, just looking when we had our conversation, our second community call, this is our third one, we're really wanting to do these community calls on a biweekly cadence. So this is something, just looking at where we're at from a timeline standpoint. And with the 16th, I'm going to focus on just getting here between now and October 16th, which isn't that far away. So we'll likely host a community call between this October 16th and October 23rd window, as well as a Gitcoin grant round, or just a Gitcoin tools working group, so that we can better understand Gitcoin Passport, and stuff like that. So, oh, I just closed my agenda. I'll add that to the next action. But we're here at the hour. This is your last chance to chime in anything, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but I'm stopping talking.
Thank you. I got to go. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, John. You've been quiet here, Arvind. What do you have any feedback for us? I will see the mic not opening as a no. So, all right. Well, everybody, we're again at the hour, our third community call for 3Win Social. Very excited with the DAO ecosystem that we're building for tokenizing real world assets. And I'm very excited to lean into energy. There's literally hundreds of billions of dollars on the table, and it's up to us to see how much of that we can deliver through cooperative ownership models, because I'm fairly convinced if we don't do it, most other projects that are going to be tapping into that aren't going to be doing it in a cooperative ownership model, at least not as well thought out as the one that we're building. So, and I saw Jonathan chimed in and amen on that. And yeah, that's the big value proposition of what we're doing, is we can do this in a more sustainable and scalable manner that really creates more ownership for people. And that's one of the biggest needs that we have here in the United States, is to shrinken the wealth gap that is occurring. But anyway, thanks everybody. I can talk about this stuff all day. I'm going to cut myself off here because we're already a couple minutes after. Till next time.